The Illyrian ambassador's backhand launched pilot Billy Hicks into the bulkhead, vertebrae cracking on impact. He slid to the deck, straining to lift himself as the arrogant alien's words cut deeper than his injuries. Earth is little more than a dirt world. How your kind achieves spaceflight without choking on your own filth defies comprehension. As the human delegation made a hasty retreat to their ship, the captain shared grim intelligence. The Illyrians dominated 1,000 worlds with advanced technology, enslaving lesser species at whim. Humanity had just days to withdraw all citizens and assets from Illyrian space, or be considered hostile invaders. But Billy refused to slink away after such disrespect. He secretly began recruiting like-minded crewmates for a desperate mission. Hacking the Illyrian database, Billy uncovered a potential weakness. The aliens evolved in eternal twilight, and their skin burned in high-intensity radiation. Billy convinced his conspirators to infiltrate an Illyrian outpost and steal a miniaturized power core, which engineers believed could be modified into a focused radiation weapon. It was a suicide mission, but if successful, it might give Earth a fighting chance against Illyrian technological supremacy. As the human ship broke orbit, Billy's team made their covert approach in a cloaked shuttle. The odds of survival were low, but no price was too high to secure humanity's future against annihilation or subjugation. Earth would never again be mocked as a dirt world without consequence. The cloaked shuttle docked with the human ship just as Illyrian fighters flashed into view, disruptor beams sizzling past the retreating craft. Billy and his team tumbled out of the airlock, the stolen power cores clutched in their hands. Chirona emerged last, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and exhilaration. In the ship's briefing room, Billy slammed the power cores down on the table before the captain and the human delegation. "We've got it, sir. The key to defeating the Illyrians." The captain picked up one of the fist-sized spheres, its surface shimmering with pulsing veins of energy. "Incredible. And you're certain these can be weaponized?" Chirona stepped forward. "Yes, the radiation emitted by these cores is devastating to Illyrian physiology. With the right modifications, you could create a focused beam weapon capable of burning through our ships and our cities." Murmurs rippled through the room as the implications sank in. The science officer leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "How do we know this isn't a trap, that she isn't leading us into an ambush?" Billy fixed the man with a hard stare. "She risked her life to help us. Chirona represents an underground resistance movement within the Empire. They want to help us break the Illyrians' iron grip on the galaxy." The captain nodded slowly. "Then we have no choice. We must begin reverse engineering this technology immediately. Major Hicks, you will lead a team of our best engineers and scientists. We need a working prototype as soon as possible." "Yes, sir." Billy's gaze drifted to Chirona, an unspoken current of understanding passing between them. The fate of Earth and perhaps the galaxy rested on their success. As the ship streaked through hyperspace towards home, the classified research facility hidden beneath the New Mexico desert buzzed with activity. Teams of scientists pored over the Illyrian schematics, racing to unlock the secrets of the alien power cores. Billy and Chirona worked side by side, her knowledge of Illyrian technology meshing seamlessly with his tactical expertise. Late one night, as they hunched over a glowing prototype, Chirona turned to him, her voice soft. "Your people are brave, Billy, braver than I imagined, to defy an empire that spans 1,000 worlds." He met her gaze, seeing in her eyes a glimmer of something more than just respect. "Humans have a saying, 'Give me liberty or give me death.' We would rather fight and die than live under the boot of tyrants." She laid a hand on his arm, her touch electric even through his uniform. "Then let us fight together, and pray that your courage and our knowledge will be enough to forge a new dawn for the galaxy." In the months that followed, a secret fleet took shape in hidden shipyards across the Earth. Sleek vessels dripping with the devastating power of weaponized Illyrian technology, the sun bombs as they came to be known. Billy trained relentlessly with his team of elite commandos, preparing for the day when they would strike at the heart of the Illyrian Empire. The day when humanity would announce its presence to the galaxy not as slaves, but as liberators. And through it all, the bond between the human soldier and the Illyrian defector deepened, forged in the crucible of a desperate struggle against an implacable foe. A struggle that would soon set the stars ablaze and reshape the destiny of worlds beyond counting. As Earth's covert fleet of sun-bomb-armed stealth bombers streaked through the void towards Illyrian space, Major Billy Hicks pored over the final mission briefing with his Alpha Strike team. The cramped confines of the lead bomber's drop bay hummed with a palpable tension, each commando acutely aware of the stakes riding on their success. Chirona, resplendent in a form-fitting UEDF tactical uniform, leaned close to Billy, her lilac eyes intense. The primary target is the Illyrian homeworld of Zephyria Prime. If we can cripple their central command and control, it will sow chaos throughout their empire. Billy nodded grimly, his gaze trailing over the ghostly green hologram of the target city revolving above the briefing table. And give our other strike teams a better chance of hitting their marks. He glanced around at the hardened faces of his commandos, each one a volunteer hand-picked for this all-or-nothing gambit. This is it, people. We hit them hard and fast before they even know what's happening. Get in, deliver the package, and get out. We only get one shot at this. Murmurs of assent rippled through the bay, accompanied by the metallic clicks of charging plasma rifles and the hiss of sealed combat armor. In the cramped cockpit, the pilot, call sign Whiplash, turned to his co-pilot. Approaching Illyrian sensor perimeter. Engaging stealth mode, now. The bomber shuddered almost imperceptibly as its advanced cloaking shield enveloped the angular craft, rendering it all but invisible to the enemy's early warning nets. Designed using a fusion of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered Kadrathi stealth tech, the bombers were Earth's secret weapon, the unseen vanguard of the coming storm. As the strike team made final preparations, a wave of ionizing radiation washed over the bomber, the telltale sign of an Illyrian recon drone passing perilously close. Hearts pounded and breath caught in throats, but the stealth held, the alien sensors sliding over the cloaked human vessel without so much as a ping. In the drop bay, Billy caught Chirona's hand in his, their fingers interlacing. No words passed between them, but 1,000 unspoken emotions flowed through that simple touch. A promise, a prayer, a desperate, defiant hope that their sacrifices would forge a better future for both their peoples. The bomber angled downward, piercing Zephyria Prime's atmosphere on a pillar of white fire. Whiplash's voice crackled over the comm, taut with adrenaline. Scans confirm target lock. Central command, dead ahead. Drop in 30 seconds. Billy felt his heart hammer against his ribs as he snatched up his plasma rifle and joined his team at the drop doors. The thrum of the bomber's fusion engines rose to a fever pitch, the deck shuddering beneath his boots. Drop in 10, 9, 8. He raised a clenched fist, eyes blazing with the fire of a species pushed to the brink. For Earth! The drop doors exploded open, wind howling into the bay as the Alpha Strike team leapt into the maelstrom, hurtling towards the gleaming spires of the Illyrian capital. And in that moment, as 1,000 sun bombs ignited the sky, the galaxy trembled on the threshold of a reckoning long overdue. The UEDF stealth fleet materialized at the edge of Illyrian space, a ghostly armada invisible to enemy sensors. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Damian Thorne's weathered face was bathed in the soft blue glow of tactical displays. All ships report ready, Admiral, his XO announced. Stealth systems nominal. Thorne nodded, his voice low. Commence Operation Sunfall. In the bowels of the ship, Colonel Billy Hicks double-checked his gear one last time. The weight of the sun bomb launcher felt reassuring in his hands. He scanned the faces of his Alpha Strike team, each a testament to humanity's finest. Remember your training, he said. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we don't stop until every last Illyrian base is ash. The dropships disgorged their deadly cargo into the inky void. Hicks's team rocketed towards the orbital shipyards of Korvax Prime, their jetpacks leaving brief flares against the starfield. They breached the outer hull in seconds. Alarms blared as confused Illyrian workers scrambled for weapons. Hicks's plasma rifle spat blue fire, cutting down the first wave of defenders. Move, move, he barked. Plant those charges and fall back. His team worked with clockwork precision, setting sun bombs at key structural points. As they retreated to their extraction point, Hicks triggered the detonator. The shipyard bloomed into an artificial sun. Metal vaporized instantly, the blast wave propagating through vacuum to shatter other orbital facilities. On the planet below, the atmosphere itself ignited, scouring vast swaths of the surface clean. Similar strikes lit up the system. Illyrian military outposts vanished in nuclear hellfire, their distress calls choked off by UEDF electronic warfare suites. Hicks watched from the command deck as Admiral Thorne directed the invasion force. Dropships and heavy armor poured from the bellies of transport ships, racing towards the surface of Korvax Prime. "Colonel," Thorne's voice crackled over the comm, "we need those surface defenses neutralized. You're going in hot." Hicks's team plummeted through the upper atmosphere, their drop pods leaving trails of superheated plasma. They touched down amidst the chaos of a city in flames, Illyrian civilians fleeing in terror. A figure loomed out of the smoke, General Moloch, Supreme Commander of Illyrian ground forces. The aliens' battle armor bristled with lethal weaponry. "You dare invade our worlds, human?" Moloch roared. "I will crush you beneath my heel." The Illyrian charged, each thunderous step shaking the ground. Hicks dove and rolled, barely avoiding a blow that shattered concrete. He fired his plasma rifle, but the energy bolts splashed harmlessly off Moloch's shields. Moloch's fist caught Hicks in the ribs, sending him flying. He tasted blood, felt bones crack. But as the Illyrian closed in for the kill, Hicks saw his opening. He thumbed the activation stud on a sunbomb grenade, letting it roll towards Moloch's feet. The alien's eyes widened in realization, but too late. The blast consumed them both. Hicks's armor, designed to withstand cosmic radiation, barely saved him from incineration. Moloch wasn't so lucky. As the smoke cleared, Hicks staggered to his feet. His team regrouped around him, battered but alive. He keyed his comm. "This is Alpha Strike. Korvax Prime is secure. We're ready for the next phase." Admiral Thorne's reply was grim. "Excellent work, Colonel. Prep your team for immediate deployment. We're hitting the Illyrian homeworld. It's time to finish this." Hicks nodded, his face set in hard lines. He turned to his commandos, about to deliver the speech that would steel them for the coming storm. The sun bombs ignited the Illyrian homeworld's atmosphere, turning the alien sky into a hellish inferno. Colonel Hicks watched from the command deck as entire continents were scoured clean, his face a mask of steadfast perseverance. "My God," breathed Admiral Thorne beside him, "it's over." But it wasn't. Even as reports of Illyrian surrenders flooded in from across the galaxy, a transmission cut through the chaos. Supreme Overlord Romar's twisted visage filled the view screens, his eyes burning with fanatical hatred. "You have awakened a force beyond your comprehension, humans," he snarled. "If we cannot rule this galaxy, we will see it burn." Hicks felt a chill run down his spine as reports began pouring in of indiscriminate attacks on human-allied worlds. Billions of lives snuffed out in an instant as Romar's loyalist fleet unleashed bioweapons and orbital bombardments. "Bastards," Hicks growled, his fists clenching. "Admiral, we need to stop them. Now!" Thorne nodded grimly. "Agreed. I'm authorizing the deployment of the Raptor Strike Force. Hunt them down, Colonel, whatever it takes." The next weeks blurred into a relentless series of hit-and-run attacks. Hicks and his stealth ships struck like phantoms, materializing to cripple Illyrian shipyards and sever supply lines before vanishing back into the void. With each engagement, Romar's forces grew more desperate, more vicious. On the purification world of Arcanus, Hicks led his commandos through blood-slicked corridors, the air thick with the screams of the dying and the acrid stench of burning flesh. They fought their way to the inner sanctum of a secret lab where the true horror of Romar's plans was revealed. "By the stars," Corona whispered, her lilac eyes wide with revulsion as she scanned the data terminals. They were developing an extinction-level bioweapon. If they'd succeeded... A bone-rattling explosion rocked the facility. Through the settling dust, a towering figure emerged. Supreme Overlord Romar himself, encased in nightmarish battle armor. "You're too late, vermin," he roared, raising a massive energy cannon, The purification of the galaxy begins now. Hicks dove for cover as searing plasma carved molten furrows in the deck plating. His team returned fire, but their weapons seemed ineffective against Romar's defenses. The air filled with smoke and the screams of the wounded. In an audacious attempt, Hicks charged forward, ducking under a wild swing from Romar's armored fist. He jammed his plasma rifle into a weak point in the alien's armor and fired repeatedly, point blank. Romar howled in agony as his systems overloaded, collapsing in a smoking heap. As Hicks slapped restraints on the Illyrian leader, Chirona's voice cut through the chaos. "Colonel, I've accessed their data core. They were planning to release the contagion on Earth itself." The revelation sent a chill through the assembled humans. The entire planet had teetered on the brink of extinction without even knowing it. In the days that followed, the remaining Illyrian systems capitulated. A new galactic order began to take shape, with humanity at its center. But as Hicks stood on the bridge of his ship, staring out at the star-flecked void, he felt no triumph. Only a bone-deep weariness and the weight of uncountable lives lost. The galaxy had been saved, but at a terrible cost. And as humanity took its first tentative steps as leaders of an interstellar community, Hicks couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenges were only just beginning. The echoes of war faded, but the scars remained etched across the galaxy. Admiral Damian Thorne stood before the newly formed Planetary Governance Council, his weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. "We face an unprecedented task," he addressed the assembled representatives, "rebuilding not just worlds, but trust between species." The council chambers hummed with nervous energy as Thorne accepted his appointment as High Chancellor. His first decree crackled across subspace relays. Brigadier General William Hicks is hereby named Earth's military governor of occupied Illyrian core worlds. Hicks's dropship pierced Illyr's atmosphere, touching down amidst the rubble of the once gleaming capital. A motley crew of humans, Kadrathi, and even a few cooperative Illyrians awaited his arrival. "Let's get to work," Hicks barked, surveying the destruction. "I want water purification stations up and running within 48 hours. Set up triage centers in any structure still standing." Days blurred into weeks as Hicks's peacekeepers struggled to restore a semblance of normalcy. But beneath the surface, resentment simmered. An explosion rocked a newly established marketplace. Hicks raced to the scene, plasma rifle at the ready. Bodies lay strewn across the scorched pavement. "Sir!" A junior officer approached, face grim. "We've intercepted a transmission. It's General Vranax. He's escaped custody." Hicks's expression resolute. "Get me Chirona. We need to get ahead of this." The Illyrian scientist's lilac eyes widened as she studied the intel. These attack patterns, they're consistent with Vranax's tactics during the Haldoran campaign. He's rallying the old guard. Their worst fears materialized as reports flooded in of guerrilla strikes across multiple sectors. Then came the bioweapon attack. Hicks stood in a makeshift command center, watching footage of convulsing victims, human, Kadrathi, and Illyrian alike. The contagion tore through population centers with terrifying speed. "How did they get their hands on this?" Hicks growled, rounding on Chirona. "You were supposed to be tracking Illyrian weapons caches." I don't know," she stammered. "Our intelligence suggested all stockpiles were accounted for." Hicks's eyes narrowed. "Or someone fed us false information. Guards, take her into custody." Chirona didn't resist as she was led away, her protests falling on deaf ears. The hunt for Vranax intensified. Hicks pushed his troops to the breaking point, chasing down every lead. Finally, they cornered the rogue general in the irradiated ruins of Illyr's industrial sector. Vranax's laughter echoed through Hicks's calm as they exchanged fire. "You think this is about restoring Illyrian glory? Fool! The contagion was a distraction. While you flailed about, I acquired the key to humanity's destruction." A blinding flash erupted on the horizon. Vranax's stealth ship screamed skyward, a stolen sun bomb in its hold. "By the time you realize my true plan," Vranax's final transmission crackled, "Earth will be nothing but cosmic dust." Hicks sprinted for his command shuttle, barking orders. "Release Chirona. I need her expertise now." As they rocketed into orbit, Chirona pored over sensor data. His quantum wake signature, I can track it. The pursuit stretched across star systems, punctuated by vicious skirmishes with Varanax's loyalist forces. With each engagement, Hicks felt the weight of impending doom bearing down. They finally caught up to Varanax's ship at the edge of Sol system. A furious barrage of sun bombs reduced the Illyrian vessel to a drifting hulk. The bomb's still active, Chirona reported, her voice tight. Someone needs to board and manually overload the containment field. Hicks met her gaze, understanding passing between them. Chirona nodded, willpower etched on her features. It's been an honor, General, she said simply, before launching herself towards the crippled enemy ship. Hicks watched helplessly as Chirona's life signs flatlined, the sun bomb's energy signature fading to nothing. Earth was safe, but at a terrible cost. The return to human space was a somber affair. As Chirona's body was carried with full military honors, Hicks allowed himself a moment of reflection. The war might be over, but the real work of healing the galaxy had only just begun. Hicks stood before the shattered remains of the PGC embassy on Solaria, his face a mask of almost unchecked fury. The acrid stench of burned flesh and melted plasteel hung heavy in the air. Medics hurried past, carrying the broken bodies of Kadrathi aid workers on stretchers. How many? He asked, voice tight. Colonel Jessica Harris consulted her datapad. 27 confirmed dead, sir. Another dozen critical. Hicks clenched his fist. And the assassins? Neutralized. We have one survivor in custody. A distant explosion rumbled, shaking loose debris from the ruined building. Hicks's comm crackled to life. General, we have multiple insurgent cells activating across the sector, a harried voice reported. They're hitting colonial outposts on... The transmission cut off abruptly. Hicks turned to Harris, his eyes hard. Initiate Protocol Omega. I want every Illyrian population center locked down. Anyone resisting is to be treated as a hostile combatant. Harris hesitated. Sir, that level of force... Do it, Hicks snapped. I won't let these bastards undo everything we've sacrificed for. As Harris hurried to relay the orders, Hicks's gaze swept across the devastation. The attack had been precisely timed, striking during a public ceremony welcoming the latest wave of human colonists. A clear message from the Illyrian hardliners. In the days that followed, Hicks's iron fist came down hard. Entire cities were placed under martial law. Suspected rebel sympathizers disappeared into black sites. The sound of gunfire became a constant backdrop to life on Solaria. High Chancellor Thorne's hologram flickered to life in Hicks's makeshift command center. The situation is spiraling out of control, General. The moderate factions in the PGC are pushing back hard against your methods. Hicks scowled. With all due respect, Chancellor, those moderates aren't the ones burying their people every day. We need to hit these terrorists harder. Thorne's expression was grim. Perhaps, but we can't afford to lose the moral high ground. I'm establishing a new security directorate to handle the insurgency. Try to keep things stable until they arrive. As the hologram winked out, alarms blared throughout the complex. Harris burst in, her face pale. Sir, we have multiple sun-bomb detonations reported in the Hephaestus system. It's Volnar. Hicks felt the blood drain from his face. Dear God, how many casualties? Unknown, but sir, the entire planet is going dark. The general's shoulders sagged as the weight of yet another world lost settled upon him. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the grim task ahead. Prep my shuttle, he ordered. We're going to Hephaestus. As Hicks strode towards the launch bay, the sky above Solaria's capital lit up with the eerie glow of orbital bombardments. The pacification of the Illyrian worlds had begun in earnest, and there would be no turning back. The shuttle's engines roared as Hicks guided it through Hephaestus's ash-choked atmosphere. Charred debris pelted the hull, remnants of a once-thriving world reduced to cinders. My God, Harris whispered, her face pressed against the view screen. Below, the planet's surface was a hellscape of molten rock and smoldering craters. Hicks's teeth clenched. How many made it off-world? Early estimates put evacuees at less than 10% of the population, Harris replied, her voice hollow. The general's hands tightened on the controls. Set up triage centers on the nearest habitable moons. I want every available ship diverted for rescue operations. As they touched down on a makeshift landing pad, the true scale of devastation became apparent. Refugees huddled in hastily erected shelters, their faces haunted. Hicks strode through the camp, barking orders and coordinating relief efforts. A week later, Hicks stood before the assembled leadership of the Planetary Governance Council. High Chancellor Thorne's hologram loomed large, his expression grim. "The Hephaestus attack changes everything," Thorne declared. "We can no longer afford half measures against these terrorists. General Hicks, you are hereby authorized to implement Protocol Omega across all occupied territories." Hicks felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "Chancellor, with respect, the collateral damage is regrettable but necessary," Thorne cut him off. "We must crush this insurgency before it spreads further." In the months that followed, Hicks found himself presiding over an ever-escalating cycle of violence. Cities were placed under lockdown. Suspected rebel sympathizers disappeared into black sites. The sound of gunfire became a constant backdrop to life on Solaria and other occupied worlds. Then came the Sunbomb attack on New Eden, a thriving human colonial city. The blast vaporized the city center, leaving a glassy crater where millions had once lived. A group calling themselves the Zardravian Liberation Movement claimed responsibility. Thorne's fury was palpable even through the hologram. "Colonel Harris, you will lead the response. Find these Zardravians and wipe them from existence." Harris's Directorate forces tracked the rebels to an outpost on Kethrin, a harsh desert world. Hicks watched from orbit as Harris deployed cyclonic firestorm munitions, banned by galactic convention. The rebel stronghold vanished in a maelstrom of fire. But as the flames died down, the horrifying truth emerged. Kethrin had been a civilian refugee camp, filled with Kadrathi and Illyrian non-combatants. The attack had been a decoy. Zardravian leader Archon Ferrith's face appeared on every comm channel and view screen across occupied space. "Behold the true face of your liberators," he snarled, footage of the Kethron attack playing behind him. "How many more must die before you cast off the chains of human oppression?" The response was immediate and furious. Riots erupted on a dozen worlds. PGC outposts came under siege from newly emboldened insurgents. An alliance calling itself the Free Systems began coordinating attacks across sectors. Hicks found himself caught in an impossible position. Thorne demanded ever harsher crackdowns, while moderate Illyrian factions who had once cooperated now turned their backs on the occupation forces. On Palshir, the largest remaining Illyrian population center, the powder keg finally ignited. Free Systems partisans incited a general uprising. Hicks's troops, vastly outnumbered, found themselves surrounded by converging rebel militias backed by a sea of angry civilians. "We're cut off from orbital support," Harris reported, her voice tight with tension. "Sir, without reinforcements, we won't last an hour once they breach the perimeter." Hicks's comm crackled to life. Thorne's voice was cold and uncompromising. "You have your orders, General. That uprising cannot be allowed to spread. Use whatever means necessary." Hicks stared at the tactical display, watching the rebel forces close in. His hand hovered over the launch controls for the Sunbomb warheads in low orbit. With a single command, he could vaporize the entire city and everyone in it, rebels and civilians alike. The sounds of battle grew closer. Hicks closed his eyes, the weight of millions of lives pressing down upon him. The comm unit crackled again, Thorne's voice more insistent. "General Hicks, your orders are clear. Deploy the Sunbombs, now." Hicks's eyes snapped open. He keyed the comm, his voice steady. "Negative, Chancellor. We have friendlies on the ground. I'm initiating a tactical withdrawal." "Damn you, Hicks!" Thorne's hologram flickered to life, face contorted with rage. "I'm ordering you to glass that entire city. Make an example." Hicks cut the transmission. He turned to Harris, who watched him with a mix of relief and apprehension. "We're going in," he said grimly. "Prep all remaining combat-ready units for a breakout offensive." Harris's eyes widened. "Sir, with respect, that's suicide. We're outnumbered at least 10-1. Then we'd better make it count. Hicks strapped on his armor, checking his weapon. Our target is the central power reactor. If we can't hold the city, we'll deny it to everyone. Within minutes, Hicks led a ragtag force of PGC troops and loyalist Illyrians through the besieged streets. Plasma bolts sizzled past, shattering ferrocrete and vaporizing flesh. Hicks dove for cover as a makeshift bomb reduced a nearby building to rubble. "Push forward!" he roared, returning fire. His troops advanced meter by bloody meter, leaving a trail of bodies, human and alien alike. Hours crawled by. Hicks's force dwindled, their advance slowing to a crawl. He tasted copper, realizing he'd bitten through his lip. His armor was scorched and dented, pain lancing through his side with each breath. "General!" Harris's voice cut through his comms. "Directorate forces are in position. Sunbomb deployment is imminent. You need to withdraw now." Hicks ignored her, gesturing his troops forward. They were close, so agonizingly close, to the reactor complex. If they could just reach those fail-safes. A deafening explosion rocked the street. Hicks found himself thrown to the ground, ears ringing. Through the smoke, he saw the reactor's imposing silhouette. With a grunt of pain, he pushed himself to his feet. "Cover me!" he shouted, sprinting towards the facility's entrance. Blaster fire erupted around him, but Hicks didn't slow. He slammed his hand on the access panel, praying his override code still worked. The door hissed open. Hicks staggered inside, making for the reactor core. His fingers flew over the control panels, initiating an unstoppable chain reaction. "Harris," he gasped into his comm. "Abort the sunbomb strike. I repeat, abort—" A blinding white light engulfed him. For a moment, Hicks felt weightless, suspended in a sea of pure energy. Then darkness crashed down, and he knew no more. Silence fell over the ravaged city. In orbit, Harris watched in stunned disbelief as the electromagnetic pulse swept outward, disabling Rebel and PGC systems alike. The fate of millions hung in the balance as an uneasy stillness settled over the battlefield. The electromagnetic pulse faded, leaving an unsettling quiet in its wake. Hicks blinked, his vision slowly returning as he pushed himself up from the reactor control panel. Pain lanced through his body, and he tasted copper in his mouth. The general staggered out of the facility, squinting against the eerie twilight haze that blanketed the ruins of Palshir. Bodies littered the streets, human, Illyrian, and Kadrathi alike. Survivors stumbled from makeshift shelters, their faces masks of shock and disbelief. A PGC trooper helped a wounded rebel to his feet, old animosities temporarily forgotten in the face of overwhelming devastation. "General!" a voice called out. Harris emerged from the smoke, her uniform torn and face streaked with soot. She rushed to Hicks's side, her eyes widening at the sight of his radiation burns. "Medic! We need a medic here!" Hicks waved her off, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "The city? How bad?" Harris's expression was grim. "Bad, sir. The reactor overload took out whole blocks. What's left is contaminated. This place won't be habitable for decades, maybe centuries." A series of explosions echoed in the distance. Harris tensed. "Pockets of resistance, hardliners who won't accept it's over." Hicks nodded wearily, wincing at the movement. He opened his mouth to speak, but was cut off by a priority alert from Harris's comm unit. Her face paled as she listened to the transmission. "Sir," she said, her voice tight, "it's High Chancellor Thorne. He's declaring Palshir lost. The entire planet is being placed under quarantine. We're ordered to evacuate immediately." Hicks stared at her in disbelief. "Evacuate? And leave everyone behind?" Harris nodded grimly. "Anyone left behind will be subject to orbital bombardment if they attempt to leave the dead zone." The general's shoulders sagged as the weight of what he'd done crashed down upon him. He looked out over the ruined cityscape, watching as dazed survivors from all factions began a slow, defeated march towards the spaceports. In the sickly light of dawn, Hicks saw the true cost of the war laid bare. The sun bombs that had secured humanity's dominion over the stars had reduced entire worlds to irradiated wastelands. There were no victors here, only the ghosts of shattered civilizations. As Harris began coordinating the withdrawal of their remaining forces, Hicks stood motionless, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The hum of evacuation shuttles filled the air, a stark counterpoint to the eerie silence of a dying world.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.